Because we're good.
It's a good time to start. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
Here we are, mid-October, October 15th, 2021. All kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah,
How
no
are
kidding.
you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, very happy Friday. We have had the most amazing October here up until today. Today is overcast and a little gloomy. Yesterday was 80, 81, beautiful, sunny. It was hot.
Yeah,
And,
no kidding.
Even last night, I was out on the perch, just a pair of shorts. I had to take my t-shirt off. I was hot. At mid-October, it's wild.
That's, you guys, last week you were saying the same thing. You were having good weather.
It's been like this. Listen to this. So it's been like this beautiful all through October so far. September was gorgeous too. But my buddy Dan, the fireman, and Janine, his longtime girlfriend, are getting married tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
The one worst day in the entire month.
Oh,
it's going to be rainy and crappy tomorrow.
Your kid, is there, this was outside, right? I mean,
yeah, they got all the tents and all of that.
Okay.
It'll be fine. As I told Lisa, it'll make this more memorable. It will. We'll have a great time. But it is a shame because then it's supposed to clear up again and be in the mid 60s and sunny for the foreseeable future.
Perfect. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, hey, maybe they're wrong. Maybe you're gonna get, the Cleveland forecast has never been anything I would ever bet on. You know, I used to think I'd bet against it, and you're probably gonna be right. Rain, okay, get out there because it's gonna be a great day tomorrow.
Hey, Charlie, where'd you go? Come here, bud. Jeez, that dog. So quickly, Browns lost a heartbreaker last week to LA Chargers, who are really a powerhouse, 45-42, man. It was like touchdown, back and forth, up and down the field, all through the fourth quarter. Wild. But, man, Cleveland's got a lot of injuries, and they're probably going to end up 3-3 after Sunday because they got to play the 5-0 Arizona Cardinals. Tough competition this year. Tough. And Cleveland is so injured, it's beyond belief, like all of our main players. So don't mean to make excuses. It's a long season now, 17 games, but
that's right.
I think it's going to be harder than we originally thought. Have had our main number one receiver, Jarvis Landry, out for several weeks now. That's hurt badly.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's still, if they didn't make the playoffs, we would all be severely disappointed for sure. But, it'll be what it'll be. Don't want to. And Lisa always goes, "Oh yeah, I got to get through you talking about the Browns before you." I don't want to bore people with that.
It's
a passion, though. It's a passion.
Friend of mine that I used to work with in Cleveland sent me a message right before the game, and knowing that I live in Los Angeles and it's now the Los Angeles Chargers, asked me who I root for when these kinds of games come up. And I said, I don't really watch the games. My feeling about the NFL, but
we got more to talk about there.
I'm
later.
Always happy when Cleveland wins because there's never going to be a time when I don't consider Cleveland my home. I don't live there, but I'm proud to be from there. That's for sure.
It's a great team too. A lot of good characters on the team, a lot of good character to the team, an amazing coaching staff. Our head coach is like a guy that you really want to idolize, but we are later going to have to talk about another head coach who just got his whole career.
Can't even believe it.
And I want to juxtapose that against somebody that we talked about last week, comedian Dave Chappelle.
Oh, can you believe the stuff happening there?
We'll juxtapose that. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
I just want to go back to the fact that I didn't watch the game, but then I saw the final score, and I got to say, I was disappointed, and then I felt like I answered the question poorly because I felt like, you know what? Anytime a Cleveland team can come in here and kick the crap out of a Los Angeles team, I'm happy. I don't know what that's all about, but
well, you know what I think it is because being a native Clevelander, the passion of football. And then you go to LA, it's like, what a bunch of wussies. They don't know anything about
I guess that's what it is.
Like,
what are we doing with two football teams?
I know, what a poor excuse for a football team.
Come on.
No kidding.
And I gotta say, I know we're going to talk about the Raiders later on, but man, they make me angry as well because it's like, what a team. I mean, who could be loyal to a team like that that just moves. If they're going to move next year, probably, who knows? I was on a trip.
They belong in Oakland, by the way. They really do.
That's where
their personality,
belong, right? That's exactly their personality.
Mm-hmm.
I drove by their new stadium in Las Vegas the other day, and couldn't believe it. I mean, the shrine that they've built over there.
I heard. And I haven't seen it. I heard. Yeah,
it's quite a thing to see. And then I just thought, Las Vegas. I don't know. I've never been a fan of Las Vegas in general. It makes me actually, as I was driving through there, I started to feel a little nauseated from all the times I've been in Las Vegas and felt that way after being there all night long. And I see the stadium. I don't know. It was just something just not right about the whole situation.
Totally agree, man. It's like you take something pure as the Oakland Raiders, where it's just an organic thing, right? And then you go and homogenize them into Las Vegas. It's just it's a shame.
Yeah, you know what I was seeing? They had a big one of those. Look at him back there.
Hey, I'm putting him in a cage. You go ahead and keep us going a minute.
All right. Well, I was just gonna say, and I'm gonna say it again when you get back. But when I drove by there was a big billboard with this whole advertisement that you could get married inside of the stadium at the Raiders Stadium, and I'm thinking, this isn't the NFL. This is supposed to be football, and now you're making it where this is a big chapel. You could get married on the 50-yard line there. That's what they've turned it into.
You know what I have not witnessed is, I remember the talk before the start of the season, I forgot about this, about doing 2 national anthems. One being the Black National. I never watched the beginning. I never start watching until kickoff actually happened.
Right.
So are they? I suppose they're doing that. I gotta check that out.
I thought it was just for the first games that were rolled out. I think they did the same thing last year, but maybe they are.
It's still amazing how they could do something so divisive and say it's inclusive.
Well, that's the thing. Ridiculous. It's like, come on, we're doing 2 national anthems. Yeah. Really?
What about the Italians? What about the Irish? Now, we're going to have to start at 8 a.m. so we go through all the nationalities.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We're going to have the Mexican
bring out
national anthem,
bagpipes, and
the bagpipes.
Don't you hate bagpipes? It's like,
I would hate it if like one of my kids was like, Dad, I'm a bagpipe fan. He's practicing all night long.
Oh, it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
Good bagpipe playing is bad enough, but like bad bagpipe playing, that would be
Phil Collins.
Can you imagine?
Phil Collins was incorporating some pretty interesting bagpipes in some of his songs back in the day.
Same with AC/DC. There was
really?
a couple. I remember that song Thunder. At one point in that song, there's some bagpipes going on and everything.
I think I vaguely remember that. It's such a horrible instrument.
You know
what? It's up there with the banjo. I hate the freaking banjo.
Yeah, I kind of like the banjo.
I think it makes me think of the Deliverance.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks of that. Yeah. That's too bad for the banjo regarding that movie. That really diminished.
Sure do. Got a
banjo
lips on you, boy.
And banjo sales dried up immediately. Can't give these darn things away. They're really expensive too. Like if what? Yeah, if you pick them up, they're heavy like a giant axe too.
Do you actually play chords on it? I always see people picking the strings apart.
Yeah,
but I don't see them play chords.
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But I get you're right. I mean, you don't see a guy with a banjo just like, hey, let me just play some chords. It's always Steve Martin. Have you ever seen that guy play the banjo?
Yeah.
Okay, that guy, what he knows what he's. How did he learn how to do that? And
how do you keep your interest alive long enough to master that godforsaken instrument?
See, that's the thing. He must be playing that thing all the time because and driving everybody crazy. I love the commercial where these guys go out. It's a car commercial, and they go out camping, and the sun's just gone down and everything, and they hear this. They're all like diving in the back of the car, getting out of there.
Never saw that, but that's for real, right? Hey, so
anyway,
to kick this off, I got a really good segment here that really goes along with what we've been talking about starting your own business. And I ran across this Jordan Peterson clip a while ago that I had to look up again. It's called "Make a Damn Schedule," and it's all about how we run our own personal lives and I should say professional lives. Right. How you make a schedule or not, and do it within your personality. It's really good. I'm going to do it in a few segments. It's only about 5 minutes worth, but I'm going to stop in a couple places that we can talk about it, because it'll switch gears a little bit and add. And I want to tell you up front that towards the end, he goes into a self-forgiveness kind of thing. What I mean by that is, we can sit here and talk about make a damn schedule and about how to do it right, how I do it right, and how you should do it, and you're doing it wrong. That's a bunch of BS. We all do it wrong because we're all guilty of so many faults, and there are unique faults, and there are unique traps that we fall into. He discusses this and how you need to find your personality, what works, and try to do just a little bit better the next day, and the pitfalls and how it harms you if you don't. So
okay, I like the sound of this.
I want to let you know up front, it's not a preach on how great he is and how we are and how you're all doing it wrong. That's not at all it. This is real down to earth, because that's what everybody does when they put out their sales book or self-help book, and that's what they do, is they come at you. I'm the expert. I'm going to tell you,
and everything you've done is wrong.
Exactly. This is not it. This is more. This is from a psychologist's point of view. So
gotcha.
It's extremely interesting. Now, this is going to go pretty quick. He talks fast and he doesn't waste words. So listen up and be on your feet here, people. Hear it okay, Merle?
You need a family. You need friends. Like, you don't need to have all these things, but you better have most of them. Family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for, time outside of work, attention to your mental and physical health, etc. That's what life is about. And if you don't have any of those things, well, then all you've got left is misery and suffering. So that's a bad deal for you.
I want to stop right there for a minute, and after this, I'm going to go for a couple minutes, but I want to say what he said right there is extremely powerful, and it's fundamental. You need love in your life. You need family, you need friends, you need some kind of love of what you're going to work for. Otherwise, there's no reason to work for something.
It's the rock that you stand on for everything else in life.
It is. And so don't leave your life so empty that there's nothing to live for. Otherwise, you go into nihilism, and it's a period of hopelessness, and it's a spiral into depression. So what I think he said sounds rudimentary, but I think it's so important that I just needed to stop on that point. He talks for a second here about continuing on about goals, but I want to just pick back up onto some pretty important stuff where he talks about risk versus reward, which is important. It's kind of on the back of what
right. You could have known, but you chose not to. Okay, so once you get your goal structure set up, you think, okay, if I could have this life, looks like that might be worth living, despite the fact that it's going to be, anxiety provoking and threatening, and there's going to be some suffering and loss involved in all of that. Obviously, the goal is to have a vision for your life such that, all things considered, that justifies your effort. Okay, so then what do? Well, then you turn down to the micro routines. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? And that's where something like a schedule can be unbelievably useful. Google Calendar. It's like, make a damn schedule and stick to it. Okay, so what's the rule with the schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the first thing that people do wrong. They say, well, I don't like to follow a schedule. It's like, well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? Well, I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this, and then I just go play video games, because who wants to do all these things that I have to do? It's like, wrong. Set the damn schedule up so that you have the day you want. That's the trick. It's like, okay, I've got tomorrow. If I was going to set it up so it was the best possible day I could have, practically speaking, what would it look like? Well, then you schedule that. And obviously there's a bit of responsibility that's going to go along with that, because if you have any sense, one of the things that you're going to insist upon is that at the end of the day, you're not in worse shape than you were than at the beginning of the day, right? Because that's a stupid day. If you have a bunch of those in a row, you just dig yourself a hole and then you bury yourself in it. It's like, sorry, that's just not a good strategy. It's a bad strategy. So maybe 20% of your day has to be responsibility and obligation, or maybe it's more than that, depending on how far behind you are. But even that, you can ask yourself, okay, well, I've got these responsibilities. I have to schedule the damn things in. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? And you can ask yourself that, just like you'd negotiate with someone who is working for you. So I want you to work tomorrow. And you might say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely that I'll work for you? Well, you could ask yourself that, you know. So maybe you do an hour of responsibility and then you play a video game for 15 minutes. I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But, you know, you have to negotiate with yourself and not tyrannize yourself.
All right, I wanted to stop there because I think there's this really, really important points. Did you hear what he said right at the end? You have to negotiate with yourself, not tyrannize yourself.
Beautiful.
Because then you'll end up like the guy on the couch there that they showed is you have to create a routine that has some sacrifice to it, but has reward to it. In the end, you want to end your day feeling good about what you did. And that's always going to consist of sacrifice during the day. A lot of us give positive reinforcements and a lot of us work on negative reinforcement. And that comes to be part of your personality. I do a little bit of what he suggested there. Now, I'm going to say that as we end with the last couple minutes, he is going to talk about more of the psychology of finding your personality, working within it, knowing that you're always at fault. You're a terrible employee to yourself. Okay. Think of yourself as an employee. You're terrible. Okay. We all want to get away with what we can get away with. Understand that. Okay. It's a different approach that you're hearing. This is a psychological approach. This isn't some rah sales video. But some people work off a positive reward. I like to do part of my projects or I'll take a part of my day where I have particular project or two, depending on how long it takes. And then I play this game. I always play this game online called 8-Ball Pool by Miniclip. It's billiards. It's just a billiard game online. But I know me. This is a part about knowing yourself. I could never get into those real life role playing games. Like all of a sudden I'm Spider-Man and I'm going through the city beating up people and it's super realistic. I would lose my life in that. All right. So I like to play a billiard game, which is short, quick. And while I play that, I pull up the news and I look at the news of the day from various sites that I enjoy. And so that's when I'm doing my research for our podcast. And I really enjoy this and it doesn't take long. And then I can get back to a different project and then come back and do that towards the end of the day again as well. Yeah. So that's what I do.
Good stuff.
Now, some people are about withholding the reward, about negative reinforcement, and about I can't get until I do all of this, I can't have this. And then you get to the end of the day and you beat yourself up for, well, I can't have much of this because I didn't do everything I was doing. Negative reinforcement. That's a tough one. It's for very high productive people do tend to follow that, but it comes at a high cost too. And, a degree of happiness and frustration and stuff.
Right.
So, but some people's personality just have to work within that. You have to recognize.
I understand what you're saying. I know I gravitate towards door number one on the positive door for me.
Good. I thought
it's mentally beating myself up I've found to be counterproductive.
I agree.
I end up like the guy on the couch, like, look, I got all this stuff. I'm immobilized.
Well,
exactly.
There's the real thing about
that's just my personal personality.
Well, it's good that you know that. We got to navigate through it. When I first started out on my own, I was 27 years old and I was terrified that I would get into really bad habits and not succeed and not do well. So for probably the first 2 years, I got up out of bed, because I'm working. I'm in a 2-bedroom apartment at that time. My one bedroom was my office. And I got, from day one of going out on my own for about the first 2 years, I set my alarm clock just as I had been when I was working for that agency. I set my alarm clock. I got up, I took a shower, and I got dressed in my work clothes. And then I went in my office and started working because I was afraid of breaking that routine. And
boy, do I understand that
worked.
one. Yep. I remember when I started working remotely, it was the same thing. I was so concerned that I wasn't going to be able to be productive by just motivating myself, because when you're working remote, nobody's looking over your shoulder. And I think for the first year, it was more of the negative motivation, more like fear of failure, or that I'd be found out somehow because I'm not doing enough. That I would work until, like, if dinner didn't happen, I probably would work until it was time to go to sleep. I mean, that's a thing you also have to look out for.
Oh, very true. Very true. So we're going to continue on with this. It seemed like there was one last thing I needed. I wanted to respond to you, but I don't remember.
No, this is good, Barry.
Okay, let's finish. I think we're going to finish this up. I had some notes on it. Continue, stop it. 5. Okay. Yep, here we go. About 2 minutes left.
Like you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life. And that's how you make the schedule. It's like, and then you look at the day and you think, well, if I had that day, that'd be good. Great. And you're useless and horrible, so you'll probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy, but that beat.
Did you catch that? Understand that. That's true. That's
right.
This is right here what I'm talking about, how this isn't your rah-rah sales speech. This is coming from a psychologist. We're all useless and horrible as we see ourselves deep in our minds and not being able to attain what we really set out for. And he said, if you hit 70% of that, you're doing good. I'm going to back up a second.
That's why you want to shoot for the stars.
Well, there you go. All right, here we go.
So you'll probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy, but that beats the hell out of 0. Right? And if you hit it even with 50% accuracy, another rule is, well, aim for 51% the next week, or 50.5% for God's sake, because you're going to hit that position where things start to loop back positively and spiral you upward. So that's one way that you can work on your conscientiousness, is to plan a life you'd like to have. And you do that partly by referring to social norms. That's more or less rescuing your father from the belly of the whale. But the other way you do that is by having a little conversation with yourself about, as if you don't really know who you are, because you know what you're like. You won't do what you're told. You won't do what you tell yourself to do. You must have noticed that. It's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss, and both of those work for you. You don't know what you want to do, and then when you tell yourself what to do, you don't do it anyways. But my point is that you have to understand that you're not your own servant, so to speak. You're someone that you have to negotiate with, and you're someone that you want to present the opportunity of having a good life to. And that's hard for people because they don't like themselves very much. They're always like cracking the whip and then procrastinating, and cracking the whip and then procrastinating, and it's like, God, it's so boring and such a pathetic way of spending your time. And you know what that's like, because you probably waste like 6 hours a day. What you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. And you need to know what your damn time is worth. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, well, would have I paid someone $50 to have had that hour? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, maybe you should do something else with your time. And it depends on whether or not you think that your time's worthwhile. But the funny thing about not assuming that is, if you assume your time isn't worthwhile, what happens is you don't just sit around sort of randomly in a state of responsibility-less bliss. What you do is you suffer existentially. And so
that's the end of it. I love the end of that. It's profound to me. Okay, so if you procrastinate and put off your responsibilities, you don't sit around in unresponsibility bliss. You sit around in a state of anxiety.
Yes.
And existential suffering. I know that feeling.
I do too.
when I have, this is full disclosure, folks, this is the hard stuff to say. I would like to tell you how perfect I am, and I am so far from it. I have my struggles, and I recognize them right here in this video, which is why I wanted to share it with you. If I recognize it, I'm sure a lot of you do as well. Now, when I have most of my client work in here, I really kind of enjoy, as hard as it can be. I really buckle down and enjoy doing it. And I feel a lot of self-worth from it. I feel like I have a good day doing it, but I have a whole lot of self stuff that I do, a lot of writing, a lot of training development of my own materials and stuff, working for myself. It's the hardest damn thing that I do because it's for me. And I do a lot of procrastinating with that. And I feel every bit of that existential suffering that he's talking about as a result.
I totally know what you're talking about. Yep,
it's a horrible struggle.
Boy, when he talked about that, it brought me right back to college. And I'm just thinking about like the horrible anxiety that I would feel because I knew I should be reading this book. I should be doing this. I should be. Good point. Instead, I'm not doing it. And so like I thought that would make me feel great to do all these other stuff, all these other things that I wanted to do, but it didn't. It wasn't giving me any kind of joy or satisfaction. In fact, it almost made those things that I love to do, things that I didn't even care for anymore. It just put a real damper on any kind of freedom or joy it just went away, you know? So,
that's interesting because I think so little about college after all these years, but you hit the nail on the head. I could put myself right back there and how I would struggle doing these really time-consuming graphic design projects, which were torturous. They were so difficult, and I wasted so much time agonizing over them and procrastinating and trying to find my way to it. And if I could have just gotten all of that mental blockage out of the way, I could have saved 75% of my time and anguish.
Here's the other thing, though, Barry, is that a lot of times what we do when we have a task or something that's on our schedule, so to speak, we've built it into something. I say we. Yes. I've built it into something in my mind that's way more difficult than it actually is. And I just had a situation where I bought this car a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that a couple months ago, and I haven't gotten my license plate yet. And I was going to have to call back to the dealer and mess with those people to figure out, anytime you got to deal with the DMV in any way, it never goes well. Yeah. Right. And
they just put kiosks in, I heard.
Oh, God. Let me write that down because I got something on that. But
Go ahead.
But the fact is that when I finally did it, it took like literally 45 seconds.
That's true. And I wanted to say something about that as well, is that when you're in overwhelm, similar to what you're talking about, when you're in overwhelm and so you're procrastinating because you don't even know where to get started, you got to back way the hell up and pick one tiny task. Tiny one.
Yeah.
And because you'll give yourself just a tiny little bit of ray of hope when you complete that little tiny task. You'd be like, that wasn't so hard. You'll take a big breath.
Right.
And then maybe you'll complete the second little tiny task.
Boy, that's
how you do it.
That is like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step or something like that.
God knows I've done everything wrong in pursuing those, but once in a while I do it right and I go, oh, eureka, got to remember this.
Yeah. No, that's really good. The DMV has kiosks. That's quite a thing.
They should put that all online, every bit of it. We shouldn't be having to go to a DMV at all.
I agree. I never ever want to go to one again. But here's something I've noticed as we transition a little bit here is that I went to McDonald's the other day on my trip. We were traveling and I'm starving. I'm like, I got to eat something. And we pull off. There was nothing except for McDonald's. And I walk in there rather than go through the drive-through. And I go up to the counter.
This in Utah, right?
This was outside of Vegas, actually.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, if you're on like the 15 that goes through Vegas, if you're on either end of Vegas, it's weird. It's a weird area because it's like fake Vegas over there. There's all these weird casinos, and it's almost like, I don't know, I always feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone when I pull off the road or check out these off Vegas casinos. And that's what it was. It was like a little casino town, but everything was, it was almost a ghost town over there. It was really kind of weird. I go into McDonald's and I go to the counter and nobody comes up to the counter. There's nobody there. And somebody that was waiting for food goes, oh no, you got to go to the kiosk. So now you don't have employees there to say, you know, well, welcome to McDonald's. May I help you? It's some cold kiosk. And then I'm thinking, what is the point here? I guess it's the labor shortage that's going on. But then I'm thinking,
everything's
you know,
going
a COVID thing, and I'm touching the same thing a billion other people touched, and I'm thinking this is such a
just
cool
automation
experience,
man.
right?
It's just AI and automation.
And I'm thinking, and the only people that were there were the people in the back, and I'm thinking, well, how long are they going to have jobs? I mean, I could come up with a machine to make a hamburger, and boy, this is where the whole world seems to be heading, and it's kind of a spooky kind of thing.
It is.
I hate it, to be honest with you.
I totally agree. I mean, we've talked about this before, the AI taking over, and one of the huge industries, they don't even know that the rug is being pulled out from underneath of them as we speak, the trucking industry. It's all going autopilot. And
boy, you got a good point there.
Yeah. And they already have trucks that can do it. And so it's only a matter of time before this proliferates, because a truck can go 24/7 and a human can only go 12 hours maximum. And they have all the liabilities that come with it, not to mention healthcare and the salary and so on. You only have the upfront cost with AI. And I remember I said this to you, that when we were on our way home from Nashville, and I had just kind of was listening to something about this, and we're going down the freeway, and just this big, long, flat stretch. And I'm just looking at truck after truck after truck after truck after truck, all the way down there. And I'm just, oh my God, the amount of people. And this is one segment of America. All across America, there's so many truck drivers that make pretty damn good money, to be honest with you, that are all going to be displaced. And that's only one industry. Okay.
Well, you look at what's going on
terrifying.
now with with our whole supply chain problem that's happening right now. You know, last week we were talking, and right after our show last week, our president came out and talked about the jobs numbers and took a victory lap on that whole thing, and 229,000 jobs in the past month, and you know, talked about how his economic plan is working and everything. And well, come to find out, the expectation was 500,000 jobs.
Not only that, they didn't talk about all the people that just left the job.
That's the big deal. Well,
Yes.
as he talked about the unemployment figures going down, what's not factored in the unemployment numbers is all the people, the millions of people that have left the job force. So if you really,
this is a big subject right here.
If you
all
factor
in and of
that
itself.
these numbers are completely different than what they're talking about. It's almost like I got an F on my report card because I only got 50% of the stuff right. But they put a curve in there where F is actually an A. And that seems to be what's been happening over and over and over again, is that an F is an A. You know, when you take a look at what we're doing here, it's pretty crazy. So supply chain, Barry, then later that day, I see these videos, you've seen them, of Long Beach, and we've got a big port at Long Beach, and there's all these ships. As far as the eye can see, there's these huge container port ships out there, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on right here? And Barry, I went down because I live very close to the ocean. I went down, I saw a huge one out just sitting out there. I mean, it looked like the size of a city. I mean, this is really happening here. This is I mean, what the heck is going on with our economy here? When you look at Joe Biden come out and talk about this stuff. The interesting thing I'm seeing, because he talked about the jobs number on Friday, he talked about the supply chain thing on Wednesday. He makes these grandiose statements, and then for 6 minutes, and then he turns around and completely walks out. He doesn't ask. Nobody gets to ask any questions about what's going on here.
What bothers me.
Let me just say one last thing. I went to the supermarket the other day. We only had a couple of things we had to pick up. $100. I'm like, God. Are you kidding me? Like 100. I got one bag of groceries here for,
I know.
You know, we got toilet paper. There's $15 on sale. This is $15 for some stupid toilet paper. And
I'm sure it's worse in California than anywhere else because you guys live in more fear than anybody else. So you can jack up those prices and everybody's like happy to pay it, you know?
Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, I think this is where the rubber hits the road right here, is that
I don't know. You guys just reelected Gavin Newsom.
How did that happen?
That happened because Larry Elder was put up against him. If it were a moderate Democrat, God, I wish that would have happened. If it were a moderate, boy, did we just go backwards. But moderate Democrat, I think, would have won in that case and would have been really a step in the right direction for California instead of another huge step backwards.
Yeah.
Well, we went all over the place. What I've been wondering, Merle, is I know about the economy and the supply chain and all that, and Biden definitely way too slow to react. His administration, because frankly, Biden is run by a committee. That's kind of obvious because he doesn't stand for anything. We don't know where he stands on anything at all until he's told what to do. About the next situation. This is what I mean about the next situation. So are there still kids in cages with the immigration problem? We don't hear about that anymore. We always just hear about the latest thing to take the news by storm this week. And what about all the people left behind in Afghanistan? Are they still out there? What's going on that we don't hear about that anymore?
Isn't that interesting that we don't hear about this anymore? So we're hearing that, yes, indeed, that nothing has really happened with the people that have been left behind in Afghanistan, except for by private individuals who have actually sent planes in there to get people out, and that's very few and far between.
God, that sounds dangerous.
Those people are in some big trouble. What we are seeing in Afghanistan is that there is an economic collapse that's going on. And the administration, the Biden administration, is talking about sending all kinds of aid and relief to Afghanistan. The problem with that is that who's going to get the aid and relief? Are the general public going to get that? Absolutely not. We're talking about the Taliban running this whole thing. They've been, by the way, the Biden administration has been still praising the Taliban, and they're working with the Taliban is very professional. And I think it's really odd because we've never heard of the Taliban being professional until
back
the
to
debacle happened.
Obama strategy. Let's kiss up to them and hope everything that they play nice, like we tried with China all this time. Now China, oh boy, I got a headline in here somewhere that was from, oh yeah, dude, I know, I'm sorry, I'm totally interrupting this, but did you hear that the Pentagon's first software chief resigns in protest because the U.S. has already lost the AI war with China and is, quote, 20 years behind its technology?
This is a real problem. Yeah, I did hear about this. I mean, when we take a look at some of the problems, this actually relates back to supply chain as well, because what we're seeing is that China is dominating in every area right now, and they're providing some of the most important pieces. Anything we manufacture, we're not manufacturing the whole thing, and we're relying on China to finish that manufacturing. Even when it comes to AI, it's the same thing. We're going to be 100% dependent on these people on this whole thing.
They stole our technology already.
The fact is, it's if they shut the technology, if they shut off that supply chain, it's like shutting off oxygen. You see it in the auto industry right now, the chips. We can't get those chips. Why aren't we building our own chips? We have all of the technology here.
It is is so simple and yet so ingenious. They lured us in with their slave labor, their cheap labor, and our capitalist society falls for it
every time.
I mean, it's almost inevitable. It is inevitable. That's the fault of capitalism. You know, we all love you and I love capitalism because it spurs innovation. I mean, to say the least.
That's right.
You know, but it also has pitfalls that they've used against us, and that's
they really have.
We in capitalism, we play off the greed because people are inherently greedy. And if you understand that, then you can use that to your advantage. And that's how we built this incredible nation. But they understood a step further that they could also use that greed to bring us over there, manufacture all of our neat proprietary technology, and then copy it and steal it right from underneath our noses.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because you started out saying that capitalism is what breeds innovation.
Yeah.
And here they have a society that does not breed innovation. However,
they can steal it.
They have no moral issue stealing things, and they figured out exactly, well, if we trick these guys into this little trap right here, then we could take we don't have to innovate anything.
And just this is what brought it up, is that we think that we can play nice with them and that they're gonna and they do. They act like, okay, yeah, we'll play nice. Why not? Let's partner on this, and then take it right up from underneath of us. They don't, because they don't have a moral compass. It's the freaking cartel over there. We know that.
It is the cartel. It's exactly the cartel. But look how we're suffering on this whole thing. And I actually think that this whole this supply chain thing is a tremendous issue that we're looking at right now because of really, look at China. China wants to own the supply chain. That is their big deal. Look at you know, and we look at how our politicians are so tied in with the profitability of China. I mean, their whole retirement plan is backed by Chinese bonds, first off. Secondly, we have people like Mitch McConnell. His wife is very much tied into the shipping industry and also tied in with that. Her father is tied in with the Chinese Communist Party. And they have a very lucrative deal when it comes to shipping. So she's very motivated to be able to grace the Chinese Communist Party. But there's a huge conflict of interest when you have Mitch McConnell deciding on the debt ceiling, for instance. And now we've got this big $3.5 trillion plan, the Build Back Better plan, which has all kinds of infrastructure
it's got everything in it, which is why it's going nowhere. It's got everything under the sun in it.
This is exactly right. But when we listened to Joe Biden this week, he talked about the problem with supply chain is that it's mostly owned by private entities, which is exactly the way we want it to be. But this $3.5 billion Build Back Better plan is supposed to take over much of that supply chain so that it would be government run, which we know how efficient the government is not.
Very efficient.
This is going to be a huge problem. But here's the deal. The way that this is being positioned, and I think it's really interesting by the Biden administration, is that, hey, our economy is doing so well that's actually what's driving the supply chain problem. The demand has gone up so dramatically that we just can't keep up with the demand. So because things are going so well, we need to invest in the supply chain because these problems are just going to happen over and over again. That would make sense if we had been having these kinds of problems before COVID actually happened. But we never had these problems. We never had ships actually back up. This is just their way of trying to put a positive spin on a piece of crap that's actually happening to the American public. And as Christmas comes up here, I think what we're going to see is some desperate times. The answer that we heard from the president is, open up those ports 24/7. That seems like a pretty simplistic way of taking a look at it, but we've got a labor shortage. That's actually what's caused the problem. So where are you going to find the people to work 24/7? Number two is, isn't that going to drive up prices? Number three is, we don't have enough trucks to come and pick up those supplies either, because we got a labor shortage there as well. And to your point, what do they want to do? They want to automate all of that stuff and put all those people out of work. So it seems like a big cluster that's just about to blow up.
Oh, got it. You're right. I mean,
and then we're going to be back to no toilet paper on the shelves again in just a couple of weeks is what it's looking like.
Man, in so many ways, it seems like we are just coming to a head of another revolutionary war.
Isn't that interesting?
And COVID exacerbated everything. COVID just lit a fire under everything. You know, it got us realizing that we could work remotely. That was a positive that we talked a whole lot about. But it, on the other hand, between the lockdown, the mandatory lockdown, and printing up a whole bunch of money to give out to people, it got a whole lot of people psychologically in this confused state of, I don't want to do this job anymore.
Right.
You know, and so there we have this whole labor shortage, people not wanting to go back into the labor force. I don't know where this goes, Merle. I don't know if anybody knows where this goes. It's just like COVID kind of took all of our underlying problems that were slowly rising to the top and brought them right to the top. You know?
Well, I tell you, you're right. This doesn't look like it's ever going to go to a good place, but it could, depending on how the public reacts to this. And I think that, as you said, you know, revolution doesn't have to be a war. A revolution can just be a change that happens here. And obviously what we're doing isn't working. And we can put band-aids on it all we want, and put a gold star on an F paper, but that doesn't change the actual production here. We're sucking canal water right now, and it's not sustainable. And so something has to break, something has to change.
Well, you're absolutely right. And what's going to happen is so many people, there's again, we're back to our extremists. So we got the far left. We all know how nutty they are, but we got the QAnon type far right that are all like 100% behind Trump because he represents the battle against the far right. And there's so much hatred there and so much divisiveness. And I feel the divide has gotten wider and wider and left more people in the middle than ever before. I think the time is necessary for that third party to take root. Lisa said something to me, I think it was this morning. She goes, did you hear about this kind of a revolution taking place within the Republican Party itself? And I'm like, no, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah.
And so that's about all I heard about it. But on the other hand, I've heard lately a couple of things about, Crystal Ball did an interview with, who is that left? Andrew Yang.
Boy.
And he's created his own third party. And I tried listening to that interview and I couldn't do it. I couldn't make it through it. That guy does nothing for me whatsoever. And when Crystal gets on with somebody that's also on the left, it brings out the worst in her, in my opinion. I really like her. When she's on with Sagar, who's more right-leaning, he's center right. Man, it brings out the best in her.
I've seen that.
Smart.
Yeah, I've seen that.
She's smart. But when she gets on with somebody that's real left, she goes all giddy far left. And it's, So anyways, my point is 4 years ago about now, I went on Facebook, on the Libertarians Facebook page, and I wrote, now is the perfect time to make a move for this third party, for the Libertarians to make their move. We got this clown show going on. And with this upcoming election, it is ripe for the taking. Nobody ever replied to me. Once again, a valid third party could so easily, I think, create a real movement, a big movement.
Yeah, I think you're right about this, and I know you've looked a lot at the Libertarian Party. I'm looking.
But a bunch of whack jobs. They'll always have headed that party. That's the problem.
Are independents a party? Is that a party? Does somebody run? No. Okay, they're just.
It's an adjective. It's an adjective.
Okay.
You can run as an independent, but it doesn't mean anything.
But it's not actually a party.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Because I look at the independents feel this way, and I'm looking at that more and more.
It's an umbrella.
Because you look at Democrats, you look at Republicans, and then but those people are going to be pretty evenly. The numbers are pretty even, right?
Yeah.
We need somebody that can come in and actually talk to both sides of the aisle and bring both sides into agreement. And right now we don't have anybody that can do that. I haven't seen anybody that can do that because as you're saying, the two sides have gotten further and further apart.
Yes.
But to me, the answer is we got to have somebody that can actually speak to both sides and bring in both sides.
Because there's
I don't know how you do it. They are nuts, right? It's like you got to be able to have crazy talk on both sides and somehow be able to say, okay, now that's crazy. So
you know what?
Here's what kind of makes sense on
the
both sides.
The independent party needs to have a left-wing nut representative and a right-wing nut representative that are just drooling on themselves, kind of nuts, that can go out and talk to them and then come back and interface and try to explain it. I'm just kidding actually, here, man.
But I don't think that's a crazy idea because it's like somehow they've got to be able to, take the ingredients on one side and the ingredients on another side and bake a cake with it. And
there you go.
That everybody likes. So actually, probably not everybody's going to like it, but the majority is going to like it,
And another thing, we said this, we were talking for a minute off camera before the show. And we were talking like, well, from now on, in these upcoming elections, these clowns got to get on podcasts and do 3-hour long form interviews and get grilled.
Yes.
And if they don't have the substance, they're not going to be it's going to be exposed.
And that's the thing that seems to be obviously on purpose, is that they don't want to be exposed for what they actually believe. And the press is complicit. They're giving them softballs.
They're going down. Their ratings are going down.
I see that.
Mainstream media is plummeting. Broadcast TV is plummeting. These long form podcasts are rising in popularity with millions of smart people. All the dummies can stay outside. Who cares? But we need our smarter people to start making more of a wave in this country. I got to tell you, Merle, there's so much trust that is lost within our government, obviously. And of course, you've heard about Pelosi and her husband raking in millions in the stock market. They just happened to pass legislation that, 2 weeks later or 2 weeks prior or later, they will buy something that's related to that in the market and all of a sudden go gangbusters. Did you hear that there's this gang of Tik Tokkers that are following Paul Pelosi's trades, doing the same thing he's doing, and they're making 20%, dude.
20. That's huge.
Yeah,
that is huge.
So
this is what corruption here. This is how they all got. This is why they all have houses in Lake Tahoe and all that kind of stuff.
Really? Listen to this. They acquired $25 million and a $25 million estate in Napa Valley. It's a gorgeous $2 million. They also have a gorgeous $2 million condo in DC, a multi-million-dollar red brick mansion in Pacific Heights. Paul Pelosi owns 2 commercial properties worth $50 million. And I wanted to show you something.
Oh,
this is from Jesse Waters, his Water World thing, which I don't watch normally. I saw this clip on YouTube, but he's got Johnny, his fact checker that he talks about. And this guy does some really good digging and shares some really good facts. And you gotta listen to this.
271 million. And in 2020, those numbers went up even more to as high as 315 million bucks. Quite a lot of crumbs. So where's the
I want to back up.
Crumbs. I love that he said crumbs.
Yeah, this is Speaker.
Pelosi.
If you're listening now, this is Speaker Pelosi's reported assets. I'm gonna back up a few seconds once again here.
The gavel in 2018, the Pelosi's wealth has skyrocketed. That year, her financial disclosure report revealed a net worth of over $114 million. Then, in 2019, Pelosi's assets totaled up to a whopping $271 million. And in 2020, those numbers went up even more, to as high as $315 million.
What's her salary, man?
It's about 400, a little less.
She's doing quite well with that. We can say this is all Paul Pelosi's financial genius at work, but hey, all you got to do is go on TikTok, and his trades are all public legally. That's all public knowledge, and they dig that crap up, and they're doing what he's doing. Let me play a little more here.
So where's the money coming from? 60 Minutes basically accused Paul Pelosi of insider trading.
There it is.
Exactly what's going on.
I wanted to ask you why you and your husband back in March of 2008 accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa. At a time there was major legislation affecting their credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
I can't stand that.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential, favorable stock deal?
Well, we didn't.
And you participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
and at the time you were Speaker of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance of a conflict of interest?
It only has the appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
Yes, sir. That I would act upon an investment.
In 2007, Visa worried the new Democrat Congress would target their swipe fees, costing them billions. So they hired a team of lobbyists who descended on Pelosi. Visa's CEO personally met with her. She got donations from him. One of Nancy's advisors left and became a Visa lobbyist himself. The old inside-outside game.
Okay, that's enough of that. I mean, that's enough to ruin your damn day, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Well, and
this is why people can't trust Washington.
Here's something.
Such a small sample size.
She's one of my favorites to watch these days because it just represents the corruption that's happening in DC, and that's a big one. She's not the only one. They're all doing it.
Yes.
So I'm sure they're doing it across the aisle as well. They're all,
and it's for the most part
this
legal.
is what's motivating them to be in Congress to begin with, because they get this insider information all the time. And there's seemingly nothing to stop them from taking advantage. They make the laws that they know are going to have an impact on these businesses, and so they get their spouse to invest in it, and then they're multi-millionaires on a salary of what, $250,000 to $350,000. Here's something that just happened this week. Nancy Pelosi presses media, do a better job at selling president's massive spending plan.
Saw that.
Asked whether Democrats have failed to effectively persuade the public that a massive influx of social spending is necessary. We're talking about the $3.5 trillion deal that's out there. Pelosi turned the question around on the reporter and she said, well, I think you all could do a better job of selling it, to be very frank with you.
Saw that video.
Every time I come here, I go through the list. Medical leave, climate, the issues that are there. So the deal is she expects the media to be her propaganda arm. And she doesn't actually have to do any kind of work whatsoever. When you hear them try to explain what's in this $3.5 trillion bill, it sounds like complete nonsense. Go ahead, Barry.
Yes. No, I was just going to say, I think it was Greg Gutfeld I heard say this week. She's just like this little queen that thinks everybody's just pawns in a video game for her.
That's so funny that you say that.
Yeah, and the way she's so condescending. I mean, we just saw her being interviewed by 60 Minutes. They're questioned by 60 Minutes, and boy,
combative.
She's just really offended that somebody's going to expose her for whatever you want to say, the insider trading. Yeah. Insider
trading. Here's another one from her. Pelosi delivered a speech at the 67th annual session of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly in Lisbon this week. And she was named the first recipient of the Women for Peace and Security Award. She says this in her speech: "People ask me, if you ruled the world, what one thing would you do?" Who was asking her that, by the way? That's scary. I think she says, "I think about that a lot." And she says,
I bet she does.
Horrifying.
I bet she does.
She says it would be to prioritize. I don't want to imitate her because I might barf. To prioritize the education of women and girls. It would make the biggest difference, not only in their lives, their families, their communities, but to the world. Okay, it's a very politically correct answer these days, but the fact is, she's thinking about ruling the world. I think that's the scary part here, because she's got the position to be able to make a pretty big impact on the world.
She does. And look who's in front of her: Biden and Harris. I could see those two falling like dominoes, and then she would be in power. Oh my God. Hey, let's lighten it up a little bit. I wanted to get over to Dave Chappelle, and like I said, juxtapose this with what happened with John Gruden. So Dave Chappelle, by the way, so we talked about this last week. I said that he has come under fire by the National Black Justice Coalition, of all people, advocacy group. I can't say that.
Advocacy.
There you go. And advocacy group, and who's for some reason were speaking out on for transgender people, because his whole show was about transgender. And so they're saying that he was dissing them, and they wanted to have him censored. They wanted to take him off Netflix. Now, this is funny. There's a dilemma here. Now, I do want to say that in the meantime, this last week, I watched that special.
So you did?
I have a scoop on that.
Okay.
But also I want to say the interesting thing is Netflix, I have noticed over the years, has become more and more woke. Their choices of their programming is more and more woke, to the point of it's infuriating. Now, however, Doug Chappelle is by far he owns their records for most watched specials. They're biggest sellers. So all of a sudden Netflix can become a huge hypocrite in this case. All right.
They sure have,
but not every other one. Okay. Now, so Dave Chappelle said this week, he goes, "Man, if this is what it feels like to be canceled, I'm loving it."
He does.
Look, Dave Chappelle's too big to cancel. That's all there is to it. There are some people.
They're cash cow.
And a lot of these networks and companies I think kowtow to the woke only for an insurance policy. So because they're doing so much crap wrong that's their insurance policy, is acting woke. But some of these even mid-tier celebrities that go on an apology tour to woke people when they get caught with their hand in a cookie jar or something, I think these people would all do themselves a big service if they give it a great big public FU to the woke community. And first of all, these are the children that got the participation trophies, kids. All right. Now we're still treating them the same way. Oh, Johnny, now you're upset about, something someone said. Right. We're sorry. No, that's not how you treat these adult children. It's time to smack them. All right. So anyways, I watched this special. I'm not a big Chappelle fan, and I only say that it's his style. I mean, I like a lot of stand-up comedy. I really do. And Chappelle, he has great philosophy within his comedy, but I guess here's what it is. This is a personal thing. In his specials of the past, he would always make a joke and do this posture of bending way over and falling backwards, laughing at his own joke. He always did that. That was a big turnoff for me. But I don't know. But also just whatever, his style just never really resonated with me. I did chuckle a couple times throughout this special, but I really wanted to watch it because of the hoo-ha going on.
Right.
Yeah, the hubbubaloo. And it literally was almost a self-documentary. He talked about the whole time. I'm not going to give the whole thing away, all right? Because I want to encourage people to watch it, to tell you the truth. I thought it was valuable. He talked a whole lot. The entire special was about how he's been accused of being a transphobe. And he called himself throughout the special, well, because I'm a transphobe, I said this, I did that. And he goes, and then you guys came at me. And he explains how they did this. And then he would show that it was taken out of context. It was bent. It was skewed. He goes, I'm not, I got nothing against you. By the way, the show is called The Closer. Okay. The Closer, like a pitcher, a closer. And I thought that was very interesting. He also said repeatedly throughout it, this is my last special ever. And then he would hit on a note, and he'd go, right there, you got me right here. I can't wait to hear what happens when you repeat this line I just said. And he goes, this is why I'm never going to have a special. And his closing was amazing.
Really?
My God, it was amazing. So that's when I went, the closer. Man, this guy's the closer. This was a philosophy that went on for an hour, and that he put it all together at the end with a punch that was powerful, man. Powerful. I really suggest people watch this. It makes the point. It makes the point. And then these idiots come and go after him again, saying this is transphobe. And they just showed how dumb they are by not getting the entire thing. They didn't, we're right over their heads. They don't even care.
No,
very shallow.
That is very interesting.
Let's juxtapose this with John Gruden resigned on Monday as the Las Vegas Raiders head coach amidst explosive email leaks that show years of his use of racist, homophobic, and misogynist language. I have a link to that, of course. And here we go. Here's, I don't know, 65-year-old Gruden. I know he looks like he's still 14, but
he does.
He's got to be 65 years old at this point, who has been in the NFL for probably 4 decades. And NFL stands for National Football League. Okay. I would challenge anybody to put a mic down on a practice field amidst all the players. And
right.
Yeah. And sit through that, what you're listening to there. Okay. How they're talking to each other, how football is played, what the culture is. Okay. I mean, amongst the players.
That's right.
Forget the coaches. So all of a sudden, 65-year-old 4-decade head coach John Gruden finds himself in a world that 5 years ago changed speech for everybody underneath of him. He doesn't participate in the woke world, All right. Lisa disagrees with me on this. I first of all, he was pressured to resign. Of course, that I don't have proof of that. Of course he was. He was given an ultimatum. Look, you could either resign or we're going to do an investigation where all this crap's going to come out, it could be leaked. It's going to go on forever and drag you through the mud, or you can just go out quietly. Well, I don't care how you want to frame this. It was a different world 10 years ago. It was a different world 5 years ago. Sure as hell was a different world 20 years ago. And here we are, once again, we are kowtowing to these woke kids by pulling out stuff from a football coach from years ago. Look, all I got to say is at the end of the day, the crime doesn't fit, the punishment doesn't fit the crime. It maybe if they wanted to suspend him, fine him, whatever, I could kind of get on board with that to some extent. Still would have some problem because first of all, it's private. No, we're going to say no, this was his work email he was using. So there's that. Punishment still doesn't fit the crime. And this is another example where I think, now we know how the NFL has been kowtowing to this horrible spoiled brat generation. Well, somebody's got to give an FU, a big FU to these people. NFL should have done that and said, we'll handle it in our way, in a respectable way. It's respectable for everybody, all parties involved. Because Gruden he got tarred and feathered and strung up.
He really did. And this is why I don't watch the NFL anymore. I love football. I thought the NFL used to be my favorite, but they've politicized every single thing in the NFL. You brought up the fact that it's 2 national anthems. People were, I don't know. It's just, they're trying to, the game's not the game anymore. It's politics, and I don't like politics in my football. But I wonder why they went after John Gruden to begin with, because I looked at the things that they had excerpts from his emails that they pulled out and said this is why he was under this kind of scrutiny. And I got to be honest, I didn't really see the big deal on any of the stuff he was saying right there. In fact, I mean, to be honest with you, a couple of the things that he said made me laugh out loud.
We can't laugh today, Merle.
Yeah, you're not allowed to. That's the thing. Is this guy was?
Oh, you think that's funny?
Yeah, I thought a lot of what he said was funny. And I think that unfortunately we got all these spoiled little brats that are running things in the NFL, including the commissioner, it looks like. Right. And this is supposed to be football. This is supposed to be tough guys out here that are doing a thing. This is a very manly kind of sport that's happening right here. And they're wimpifying it. I got another word for it, but I'll just say they're wimpifying the whole sport right here because they want to put in symbolic kinds of things like to be woke. Okay, it's like, for instance, after Gruden resigned, they gave the one openly gay NFL football player the day off, and they said he's really thinking about these things and he's trying to deal he's trying to deal with it. And after I read it, I'm like, okay, well, he said things about black guys, a black guy as well. They put it out there. He said something about his lips were bigger than the Michelin Man.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that made me laugh. Okay, I'm a black guy. Okay, come on, lighten up, people. I mean, seriously, lighten up.
Now the black guy said, "Boy, his skin was white as a piece of paper, or whatever else."
Yeah, we can't. Maybe the guy's lips were really big. I mean, people have big lips. Who cares?
Saw a picture of him.
Look at John Gruden's hairstyle. We've been making fun of his hair for 20 years.
We've been calling him Chucky.
That's a terrible thing to call somebody, and he embraced it. He thought that was funny.
Have a sense of humor, people.
Make fun of yourselves. Come on. And that's what the NFL has become. I'll tell you what, Barry. Well, when I saw President Obama come on right before the Super Bowl several years back and told us that if he had a son, he wouldn't let him play football.
Right.
I knew it was the end of the NFL as I knew it. And I was right. And they ruined that darn game. I mean, okay. And I also found out John Gruden just signed a $100 million contract, and that now he has to resign. He can't be the only one making comments like this, to your point.
Right. And he turned that team around as well.
Yeah, he turns around every team because he knows what he's doing. You hire a guy like that because he knows what he's doing, not because of the emails that he's sending. And we would have never known
years
about
gone
this.
By. That's what bothers me.
It is. We just saw the same thing happen where they were going after Clint Eastwood because of something he said 40 years ago during the Academy Awards, more than 45 years ago, the Academy Awards. It was because when what's his name? He won the Best Actor award on The Godfather. And
Marlon Brando?
Yeah, and instead of going up there, he didn't show up, and he sent an Indian guy up there to talk about the atrocities that the Hollywood has played on the Indians. So Clint Eastwood comes up to announce the next guy. He goes, I don't know if I should even give this award out. I mean, maybe I need to do a tribute to all the cowboys that were shot.
Dude, that's funny.
It's funny, but you're not allowed to be funny anymore. That was 45 years ago, and they're trying to cancel him now because of that.
Oh my God.
Gone to the extreme end of ridiculous.
Gotta see that again. That's why we need to get a moderate party in there, get everybody on board, and leave the other people on the fringes. And and just throw the middle finger up to all these woke people.
Grow up is what I say.
Watch Sesame Street. Just put them in front of Sesame Street,
and then
sticks
leave
and
them there.
stones. Yeah, learn all of that crap that we learned as kids. Control your feelings. 2 wrongs don't make a right. You know, that's
all
a
things.
big one.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We should sign off and go.
All right. Show. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and
all I gotta say is, let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. Your son. I'm lost.
No, that's somebody will get that.
Okay.
There's we can pick that up on the next show, but that's a saying now, Barry.
Oh, okay. Because in the next show, I do want to talk about something kind of bothersome about Merck and their new COVID medication. Probably just got flagged there. All right, everybody. yes. See you guys next week. Sign up at Over 50 Starting Over. Just pull up your app. Sign up for our podcast there, Over 50 Starting Over. All right, see you next week.